my current project, which is the Glenwood Springs Move project. And what as I said, this project's maybe 6 months in. But the project introduction, so I'll just give you some background information so then we can follow along a little better. But then I want to show you our project vision, our purpose, and our need. And what I want to show you for those, I mean, those are all the environmental courses that I teach right now. We talk about vision and goals and purpose and need and stakeholders, but it's not just, you know, when you're in your class, it's a process to develop the vision and the purpose and need. And I wanted to show you that's also a process in real life when we're doing this. So I'm going to show you all the different iterations and then the final one, just to show you, you know, it goes on everywhere. It's not like you're finally going to learn how to do it. You kind of keep practicing, keep bouncing ideas off of people like you do in class. You bounce it off of your professor and other students in the class. And I bounce these things off of my other team members and our clients, and we keep evolving that. I'm going to talk to you about our public outreach process. We just had to flip things around because usually we have our traditional open house meeting, but that was scheduled for March 16th and we had to cancel that and kind of change direction. So I'll just talk to you a little bit about that because all environmental projects, public outreach is a big deal. And how do we do it right now during these times of maybe not being able to get together in a large room? And finally, the focus group. So that was one of our stakeholder groups during our public outreach, and that's when you guys are going to be the focus group and do some polling exercises like they did. And then at the end, I can talk about my career path and any career advice if anyone has any questions. Okay, so my client is the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority, or RAFTA, and the City of Glenwood Springs. So this is a joint project. Glenwood Springs is 3 hours west of Denver on I-70. It's right between Vail and Aspen, so great skiing in every direction. But it's a small town. I moved here from Chicago. It's big difference. But RAFTA is a wonderful transit agency. They're the largest rural transit agency in the country. They implemented the first BRT, or bus rapid transit, in a rural environment in the country. They serve everywhere from Aspen to like Western Garfield County, which is a 40-mile corridor. So Aspen is at one end. As you can imagine, there's a lot of high-end housing, high-end work, but not a lot of, high-end building and high-end work, but not a lot of housing for employees. So RAFTA really serves a lot of employees who work in Aspen but can't afford to live there. And it goes through Glenwood Springs. We're about 20 miles from Aspen. And our project is kind of looking at a bunch of different things. So we're looking at extending, and I'll show you some pictures of this, but extending their bus rapid transit a little further, looking at parking problems in Glenwood Springs and at the RAFTA transit stations, congestion problems at intersections. So we'll go into a little bit more about that. Our first thing we had to do was come up with a project name. So everyone loves acronyms. So we came up with this Multimodal Options for a Vibrant Economy, or our MOVE study. So this is our study area. This is Glenwood Springs. This kind of is the main corridor, Grand Avenue, and it's also State Highway 82, and that's the road that goes all the way from Glenwood. If you get off at I-70, I-70 is right here from Denver. To get to Aspen, you get off right here in Glenwood and you take Grand Avenue and 82 directly to Aspen. And so we were told that we have 6 critical intersections that we needed to study. So looking at signal timing, how long does it take pedestrians to cross the street there? I should just back up and tell you that I work for consultant Parsons. And so when I say we were told, the city and RAFTA told us, Parsons, this is part of our study, and this was the study area. And then again, the components are the oversupply and undersupply of parking, parking management and enforcement, locating a transit center downtown. So Right now, the BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, goes all the way from Aspen and stops right here at the south end of Glenwood Springs. Well, that's not really helpful for people who want to go downtown Glenwood Springs because they have to switch to a local bus or, you know, figure out another way. So the thought is if we can extend into downtown Glenwood Springs, we could get a lot more people out of their cars and on the bus because it will now, the bus will go to where they want to go. But the reason that the bus already stopped at 27th and didn't go downtown was because there's a lot of congestion and a lot of lights. And if you know bus rapid transit services anywhere else, the whole thing is about speed and reliability, and they just could not be reliable once they get caught up in traffic in Glenwood Springs. So our task is to look at different alignments to make the bus rapid transit reliable and fast and efficient. So is it exclusive bus lanes? Is it getting rid of parking lanes? Is it giving transit signal priority? Is it taking over a bike and ped trail and putting transit on it? How can we get that rapid transit to downtown Glenwood while still keeping their service at a high level of service? So this is just some of the things we're looking at. Again, right, basically the bottom of this map is at 27th Street. And then these are just showing the different alignments that we're looking at to try to get that bus downtown. Basically, here's the core of the city. So all different alignments, just showing the things we're different places we're gonna study. Is there enough space on the road to add a bus lane or to take away parking? So that's the BRT alignment options. This is showing existing crashes. As you know, for purpose and need, you need to show that what's the problem, right? So this is kind of some evidence of the problems going on downtown, is that we have a lot of crashes, non-intersection crashes, fatalities. So just more of kind of showing the problem. And then this is our study process. So what we were going to do is look at all these individual solutions individually first. So those 5 different BRT extensions. Where is the transit station going to go? What are some different parking options? What are some different signal timing options? Then we can go through a level 1 fatal flaw screening, and whatever goes through there then gets bundled into alternatives. And then those alternatives go through a comprehensive screening to get a locally preferred alternative. So like one alternative will be, okay, well, we're gonna take the BRT on this one alignment, but to do that, we need to get rid of parking. We need to change the signals, like put transit signal priority in. So that's a bundle. So taking all the things at the top that pass and bundling them to go together. So this now is kind of what I was just talking about, but this is the evolution of, well, how do we get to that? Here, let me just back up one slide. This level 1 fatal flaw screening, what are those, what's the screening criteria there? And to understand what the screening criteria is, we needed to understand, make sure we got the project purpose down, make sure we got the need down, and then the goals. So these all flow into each other. And then from the goals, we can develop that evaluation criteria. So you can't just jump in and say, okay, it's gonna be this, this, and this. These fundamental keys to all environmental projects is what we needed to kind of back up and take our time to make sure we get right, to make sure then we have consensus in this evaluation criteria, and then no one can come back and be like, oh, but what about this? You know, so it's really a good building block in making sure we do these steps, we get buy-in at every step of the process, and then we can come up with that evaluation criteria.
I have a question just as far
Sure.
as when you're coming in there, are you coming in there to create plans for them, or are you also a contractor and then you do the work?
Well, that's a great question, and you'll see our evolution, or I think the visions, one of our statements, we removed like making plans. So what we were hired to do is come up with like a conceptual plan or a recommendation. Okay. When we're done, we'll have this overall recommendation, like, okay, the BRT needs to go on this way. You'll probably need to extend the roadway width a little bit. You'll need to change the signal timing. And then we have this package of this preferred alternative. a designer then, which could be us or could be someone else, and then design the actual roadway width for a contractor to build. So
Oh, okay.
for a lot of projects I do, there's like the planning process, the design process, and then the build process. And this is just the planning. And so the results of this will go to a designer to design the roadway, to design the signal timing, to design new parking lots, things like that. And then the contractor will build it.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So this is our final vision statement and our final purpose. And this looks great. But I'm going to show you how it didn't look so good. So the vision statement is, this is where we ended up: a community with safe, multimodal, and efficient connection options that makes Glenwood Springs a city of great vitality and quality of life. So remember from your classes, the vision statement's like what you want this to look like in 20, 40 years, long term. The purpose is to optimize the efficiency and utility of the transportation system within and through Glenwood Springs by developing, evaluating, and selecting transportation strategies and opportunities that align with the city's goals for mobility, land use, economic vitality, economic sustainability, and quality of life. Whew. Okay. So, vision statement. This is kind of our working where we started, right? So first, again, I reminded everyone in all of our working sessions, what is a vision statement at the top there. So our first shot at this from Parsons, so my colleagues and I, this was our first, without the cross out. So everything that's written there was our first kind of shot. Vibrant, safe, multimodal use community corridor, okay? So that was our first shot. At the same time, RAFTA also put together what they thought the vision statement should be. So these two were kind of simultaneous. They have Grand Avenue corridor, safe multimodal efficiency and connectivity makes Glenwood Springs a city of great economic vitality and quality of life. So then we had an attempt to combine these, and this one, a community corridor, we took out that word Grand Avenue because that's kind of predetermining our final alignment. We don't want to do that. We're looking at a bunch of different ones. So that's why that Grand Avenue is crossed out. That's not in here. We took out long term because that was just maybe too hard to quantify. So we came up with this kind of the next community corridor with safe, multimodal, efficient, and includes high quality of life. Well, then we ran that by our technical advisory committee meeting, and they realized that the word corridor is also limiting. So not only is Grand Avenue limiting, but so is corridor. So finally, this is the one that we came up with that was on that previous slide. A community with safe, multimodal, efficient connection options that makes Glenwood Springs a city of great vitality and quality of life. So just again, showing the evolution here of a vision statement. Next is the purpose, project purpose, evolution. And Tim, this is where kind of that, what are we actually doing was taken out here. So first we had the word implement up there, but then we realized, wait, no, that's not our role. We're not implementing. We just need a purpose for this phase of the project, not the entire, like, until it gets built. So that implement word was replaced with develop. This safer, more reliable, and faster travel was taken out because that's moved more into our goals. This one was pretty good. We thought we were really doing great by the time we got here to optimize the efficiency and utility of a transportation through Glenwood Springs. Well, someone pointed out, well, we don't want to just talk about the people that are going through. We also want to talk about the people that are traveling within Glenwood Springs. So we added that within an and then finally, now here again are those words, Tim, that evaluating, selecting, and developing transportation strategies. So that's really focusing, making sure everyone's clear. That's what this project's doing. We're not building it. We're not implementing it. We're just evaluating, selecting, and developing the strategies. So that's our final purpose. These are just some project needs. Like I'm not going to go through the evolution of those, but you remember the needs are showing the problem. So the purpose is the problem and the needs are evidence of the problem. these were our first project goals, but these were developed prior to, I showed you that kind of the flow chart, right? Where you need to do your vision, your purpose, your needs, and then your goals. Well, these were developed by the client before the project started as the project goals. So we had to kind of change them around and make sure they went better with our established purpose need. And then, so our goals, our final goals are here. And these fit with the project need and what the alternatives are. So any questions about project and need and vision or purpose or goals, or kind of developing any of those?
Hi, can you just go back to the previous slide of your final goals?
Yep.
Yeah, just a minute. Go through.
Yeah. Sorry, I went right through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you might see for this, they're very specific. We had to start getting a little more specific because we're starting to think about, well, how would we measure these things, right? So it can't be too vague, because the next step, if you remember that, the next step of this was going to lead into our project evaluation criteria. So this leads into specific measures of, okay, well, how do you measure congestion? How are you measuring reliability? And I just had a conversation yesterday where we were finalizing those measures for that. So for reliability, our measure is going to be the percentage of time that the bus is in mixed traffic versus the percentage of time that it has its own dedicated lane. You know, so that's kind of how these goals are evolving here. Okay. Any other questions? So I apologize, you can't read these little texts a bit, but I just wanted to show our schedule and kind of the big picture of what we're doing. You know, in the beginning, we were just gathering and having meetings and gathering existing information. So if there's anything already out there, we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Our vision, purpose, and need is what I just described to you. That started, and it was supposed to just go February to March, but you see, then we were going to have our public meeting in March, and then our vision, purpose, and need would be done, because our first public meeting was to have the public weigh in on the purpose and need. Well, this green bar was our public outreach. So it ended up being starting about the first week of April. It was a 30-day online outreach. And so what we did was we had a survey. We had an interactive map where people can pick on the map and put where they see problems or where they have recommended solutions. There was a recorded presentation with yours truly doing the presentation, because I knew how to do screencasts from teaching here. So I was able to put the presentation on. Everything was in Spanish as well. So we had the same pages all in Spanish too. I did not do the Spanish presentation, but we had one. And then we had a bunch of advertising. So we advertised not only in the, like on the radio and in the newspapers, but real big social media outreach. So all the social media venues, and once a week we had something that was like already developed to go out on social media. And then another time once a week, what we did was we had a frequently asked question, like live recorded. Our client would record, hey, we heard this great question on our website this week, and here's the answer. And by the way, go to the website and fill out the survey and, you know, put your questions in or your recommendations in. So we actually did this 30-day online, that green part, outreach. We had 109 responses to our survey, which when I was working in Chicago, that would have been pathetic. In Glenwood Springs, if we had our in-person public meeting, I was expecting a good turnout would be like 30 people. So for us to have 109 responses, we were pretty thrilled for that. So it's all relative and scalable. So that's kind of where we are in the process, and we're developing these alternatives. Then we're going to evaluate the alternatives, have another public outreach session in August to have them have the public weigh in on the alternatives, and then finally get our locally preferred one and kind of do a little bit more design for that. So I just want, so we have all these little colors. Sorry, it skipped a slide. Going back one more. Yeah, so our stakeholders in our community. So that green bar you saw was our public at large, but you saw all these other colored dots on our schedule. And that was meetings that we're having with our technical advisory committee. So these are like the technical staff, the planners and the engineers from the local stakeholders. So not just RAFTA and the City of Glenwood Springs, but the Colorado Department of Transportation, the county, FTA, and FHWA. And we meet with them every other month to review technical analysis and recommendations. And we also have the focus group. These are like elected officials and policy officials of the corridor. And we're meeting with them twice, once during the visioning process and then once during the alternatives. So the online, I'm just going to show you a sample of some of the survey questions for that 30-day online survey that we had, some of the questions and some of the answers. So, you know, we had our basic question of where do you live? Obviously, since this is a Glenwood project, most respondents were from Glenwood, but these other areas, Aspen, Carbondale, Newcastle, Rifle, they all are served by RAFTA, and they all basically go through Glenwood and need to, or to Glenwood. So it was good to get a variety of answers or of respondents from the area. I added this here to show you. We talked about this because we wanted to know where people work. Do they work in Glenwood? Do they work in Aspen? But when we were writing the survey, the person that was helping me, she's like, "Well, I wouldn't know how to answer that right now because I work in my home." But she didn't, you know, she didn't always. So we had to say prior to COVID, I worked. So this is Glenwood Springs, Carbondale, Aspen, other works from home. We asked how they normally travel in and around the project area, if they drive or carpool or walk or bike or bus. You see the bus, very low percentage versus people who drive. And then the next two slides, we identified kind of all those things that we're hoping to fix for this project: parking, downtown and parking at the RAFTA stations, bike and pet access. And we said, how bad do you think this is? Or how quickly do you think we need to improve it? So like if they answered 1, yes, it has to be improved right away, versus 5, hey, this is fine how it is. You don't really need to waste your money improving this. So you can see, so like 1 and 2 is, yes, it has to be fixed. So downtown parking, a lot of people think that had to be fixed. The parking at the RAFTA stops, pretty high percentage. I mean, everything here, it's higher percentage of, yes, this is a problem, you should fix it, versus it's not a problem. And then the few more was intersection backup downtown. So that's the congestion, adding a stop. Do they think we need to add that stop downtown? And getting the buses to be able to move quicker through downtown and not get caught in traffic. So again, pretty high responses of, yep, it's a problem. You guys are studying the right thing. So that's just a good pulse to make sure we're, you know, not way off base. And then also, I told you we had the interactive map. So not only did we have the survey and the responses, but these are some things that people typed up and submitted to us from the map about some recommendations they have for buses, how the buses, you know, different ways that they don't need to get caught up in traffic. We have a very large biking community here who are very passionate. So they were talking about different ways to improve biking, and we had to be careful because our scope is just to look at biking to the transit stations, not improving biking across all of Glenwood Springs. So what we did was we made sure the the right people got some of these answers. If it wasn't in our scope, but it's really, and it's a good, this was a great way to capture not just stuff for our project, but how the public feels about other things. So we passed these results on to the correct people, like the bike and ped people at the city or at RAFTA too, if it, you know, if it didn't pertain to our project. And more, we got recommendations about pedestrians, vehicles, and parking. Okay, so here comes the fun thing. So focus group, remember they meet twice. They're the elected policy people. Here's just kind of a sampling of where our members came from. We have a city council member, Chamber of Commerce member, school district, Parks and Recreation, the Transportation Commission from the city had a member, the county, our Downtown Development Authority, our bicycle advocates, and our planning and zoning. And their role is to confirm identified issues, to develop project needs, to be project ambassadors, and to spread the word and engage the public. So I gave them we had an online meeting similar to this about a month ago. And I just wanted to show you the first couple of slides. Yeah, I don't need to, the first couple of slides I showed them because they might look familiar to some of you. Purpose and need definition. So I went through, okay, what is the purpose? Defines the problem. What are the needs? This might be familiar to some of you because I took this right out of one of our classes at APU. So just, you know, it's that we're looking at the same things that we're looking at in class. Okay, now here is where it's your turn to be a focus group member. So again, if you want to participate in our fun polling, you can go to ahaslides.com/NAEPAPU, all cap. And I'll give you a minute. And when you get there, you will see this question: which bus issues do you agree with? So think about your own community and answer this for kind of what issues you have with your buses in your own community, if you have buses, or just, you know, make up a place that you want to focus on. And I'm gonna log in too. And then you can select as many as you want, I think, and you press submit and your results will show up. Then you come back to my screen here and you'll see the results start popping up. Okay, so it looks like for this group, we don't like waiting at the bus stops. The bus schedules and routes are not confusing, so that's good. But again, just to show you, so this is the type of thing, this is exactly what we did in the focus group. So today you're our focus group, but I'm gonna show you the same question that I asked them. It was a little more specific in their results. So you go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here I had, this is their results. Which bus issues do you agree with? Select all that apply. Their choices were a little different because it was specific to Glenwood Springs. But again, they, sorry, it's going back. So they did talk about waiting. Let's see. Waiting for buses, so is not a pleasant experience. That's that too. So we have our community as focus group people is a little different than the community in Glenwood. But they say that here in Glenwood, waiting is not as big a deal as some of these other things. Buses getting caught up in traffic and the scheduling is confusing. I also asked the focus group, which I'm not gonna ask you for this one, but for some others I will. Then we had some open-ended questions. Are there other bus issues that we should consider? So they got to type in kind of some of the other issues too that they see. Okay, if you go back to your screen, you have another question to answer. This is now about biking in your community. Which do you feel like are issues in your community? Okay, great. So most bus stops have no parking. That's bike parking. That's a problem here too. A lot of people here are the buses only in the summer. They have the front loading bike racks for 2 bikes. They take them off in the winter because they put ski racks on the sides of the buses in the winter. But bikers are a little upset about that because bikers around here like to go year round. So that's kind of this bike loading opportunities on the buses. So this, again, I asked the same question to the focus group. Theirs was a little more specific. And their top concern was that the connections are dangerous to get to on bike to the bus stations. There's like these abandoned railroad tracks they have to cross over. Bikers don't like going over abandoned railroad tracks. Okay, now here's your open-ended question. So I'll give you a minute, but I had listed 4 bike issues that I saw in my community, but what else do you guys see? Is there any other bike issues that you see that weren't listed that the focus group should consider, or the consultants?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so the city bikes, I don't know if you're talking about bike share, but we have bike share in Aspen and it hasn't extended down to Glenwood yet. So that is something that we're looking into. Bike safety, yep, there's been some stolen bikes. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So again, here's some other, the focus group also answered the same question and they talked about the e-bikes. They talked about having more e-bikes because there's hills here. And I think that's more for the bike share being e-bikes, so. Okay. This is one of your last ones, but pedestrian issues. What kind of pedestrian issues do you guys have in your communities?
Hello.
Okay, so I think everyone thinks that there needs to be more grade separated crossings. Apparently at your places, you don't need to wait over 2 minutes to cross the street like we do in certain places. Okay. And then again, focus group was asked the same thing. They also think that the ped crossing, we need more grade separated crossings. But see here, they don't like the wait time because it's over it's like 2.5 minutes when you press the pedestrian crossing button to get across. So then you get the walk arrow. Okay, I'm gonna just keep moving here for time. So, okay, I think we got this one. This is car driving issues or congestion issues. So pick which ones happen in your community. And as you're doing this, I want to tell you where we got the questions from. So we had that 30-day online, survey. These issues were what the public told us are the issues. So then we took the issues from the public and we asked the focus group, who are the elected officials and the community leaders, and said, okay, do you agree with the public? Or was it just because you don't want to get just like one person from the public being very, very vocal? So we just needed to make sure, yeah, is this really what we should be kind of focusing on? Okay, so gridlock and lights being synchronized is problem. And then our focus group also said there too many drivers was their problem, not enough people on transit.
Yeah, in all the questions, I feel that during the peak hours, the responses can change.
That's a
So
very good
whatever
point.
survey we have done, I feel, when I think of when I'm answering the questions, I feel during peak hours, the response could be different.
Yeah, that's a great point. And our analysis is just the peak hours, like in the summer, right? So like when we're looking at solutions, we're modeling the summer, which is the peak for RAFTA and the peak for the city during the morning and an afternoon peak. So very good point. We should kind of quantify that next time a little bit more, because during the middle of the day here, things are fine. Bus breezes right through. So it's just the morning and afternoon. So you're absolutely right. Okay, and finally, parking issues. Do you guys have parking issues? During the peak hours? Okay. So need drop off and pick up areas for rideshare and taxi. So we actually don't have rideshare yet, like Uber and Lyft. It's just coming. So we're realizing we're gonna need, like at the RAFTA stops, there's no even just drop off for like if I'm driving my husband to the RAFTA stop to go to the airport, there's no area to drop off. So that is a problem here too. Not just for me to drop him off, but when Uber and Lyft evolve. They're in Aspen, they just haven't made their way here yet. Okay. And again, we asked the focus group the same thing. And we had some open-ended questions for them about parking. They had a lot of recommendations for us. And finally, you're gonna have one more, and it's, this is more of a word cloud. Because, and this is how I ended the focus group as well, we were talking about issues and issues and issues, but I wanted to end on a positive note. So go ahead, and you have up to 5, if you look at your screen, 5 things you can enter, just a word, just describe what you like best about transportation in your area.
So here we talk about the mass transit or
Any
transportation.
Any transportation,
Okay.
yeah, anything. Great. So again, if I was hoping in our focus group there would be one word that everyone typed in and would be really big at the in the middle. We didn't have that, but still we had a lot of great. It still brings out a lot of great things about transportation in our area in general. So that's great. Someone likes the hills, huh? Okay, so that was kind of you being our focus group, and that's just what I just wanted to show and kind of reiterate what, you know, these are the things that we do on the first couple months of a project. We had to decide who was on the focus group. We didn't want more than one person from the city council because we didn't want them to dominate it. So it's kind of a, you know, delicate dance there to get the right mix. And all these things, again, there's a lot of things that we cover in classes that I'm doing as well, right, on this project. So the next steps for my project, we're going to have a next TAC meeting. We actually had the second TAC meeting where we went over those public outreach results and the purpose and need. So now I've finalized the purpose need. I'm presenting it next week to just get the final approval. So that'll be final. And we are developing those evaluation criteria based on the goals, and we'll do our level 1 screening. And then we'll go back to the focus group with that results, and we'll go to the public with those results, have our second public engagement in August. And then we have, actually, if you want to know more about the project, you can go to raftaglenwoodspringsmove.com. So that's the next steps of that project, and might be my last slide. I wanted just to talk really, really quick because Tim asked me if I had any advice on careers or kind of what my career path has been. And I just want to talk about that really quick. So I have an undergrad degree in civil engineering, and I worked for some engineering consultants in Chicago and Manhattan for a few years, and then decided I wanted to go and get my PhD. So I moved back to Chicago and in about 2006. And got my PhD in civil engineering transportation at Northwestern. But the reason I wanted to was because when I had my undergrad degree in civil engineering, I went to work and I felt like everything I was learning at work was just on the job training. And I was like, but I just took 4 years of school. Why is it? So I felt like I can, you know, if I get my PhD, maybe I can help bridge that gap a little bit of, here's the things that you're learning in school, and this is why it's important, because this is what you use it for at work. So after getting my PhD, I taught at Northwestern Adjunct while living in Chicago, and I worked for the Illinois Department of Transportation, where I was the environmental lead for these really large public-private freight rail projects. Kelly and Chris, I worked with Ron Deverman on that. I know you guys know Ron. And Tim, I think you've come across Ron in this environment. But so Ron, when I was at IDOT, Ron was, he still works for HNTB, but he was the project manager for our project there. And then 4 years ago, I moved out to Glenwood Springs and started this job and started teaching for APU, AMU. So still continuing to hopefully be bridging that gap. And then just, I was thinking earlier of my career advice. You know, I've worked for a bunch of different consulting companies and I've relocated. So when I moved from Chicago to New York, I had to find a new job, and moving here, I had to find a new job. So my method has worked out quite well. What I've done is reached out, found like some alumni lists. So I went to Bucknell for my undergrad. And when I moved from Chicago to New York, I somehow found all Bucknell civil engineering graduates who worked in New York City. And I just reached out to all of them. And you know what? People from your school love to hire other people from that school, because they know if you went to a program there, they know what kind of student you are and what kind of worker you are and everything. So I was able to get two different jobs at two different companies in New York from that. And then just kind of reaching out to all my connections when I moved to Glenwood Springs. You know, I told everyone in Chicago, I worked with a bunch of different consultants in Chicago because I was the project manager for IDOT. So I kind of just said, hey, does anyone know anything about Glenwood Springs or have any contacts? And I had a few different opportunities to connect with people through those connections, or just talk to this person. And so I wouldn't ask them for a job. I would say, hey, you know, who works out there? What's the work like? Do you have any recommendations of who I should talk to? And I just kind of kept a list and followed the track down until I found that, found these good jobs. So that's kind of my story, my project. That's all I have, but do you guys have any questions or want to chat about anything? Yeah.
Hi, Thank you for a wonderful presentation and your
Oh, you're
career
welcome.
path. Yeah, thanks for sharing the details. Yeah, I just wanted to know about this project. Did you go in for any specific case study of, a city of a similar scale or with similar problems?
So what we like to model these kind of projects on are other resort town cities.
Mhm.
So like Park City, Utah is a good place we kind of check in on. But kind of small, usually mountain towns that have, we call them resort towns because the people here like that we kind of go out and see what other similar communities are doing. But
Right.
I also, so I work out of the Denver office. I've only been to my Denver office twice. I work from home. But I have people I work with every day from my office in Denver who are doing similar projects as well. So we kind of all, get together on these types of calls and brainstorm like these evaluation criteria. We did that yesterday. And I have a colleague who's like, okay, well, we did this, this, and this on this project. It's not going to fit here, like that reliability. How do we figure out reliability here? So we, some things we can use from other projects, and we have other
Right. Yeah.
people working on them and who have great experience as well. So it's just kind of networking a little, even within your company, to see who's worked on similar projects.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
what
makes
they
sense.
can
Yeah.
teach. Yeah.
And why did your group focus on summertime for this particular study?
We wanted to find the worst case scenario. So we figured if we can fix the worst time, then that will be good for the whole year round. So RAFTA, their peak time is actually in the winter because of ski season, and also in the summer because this is a big tourist town. There's the largest hot springs is in the world is in Glenwood Springs, hot springs. So it's a big tourist town. So and the city, like we looked at the hotel revenue actually across the year, and summer is their peak. So we decided to focus on summer, which is the busiest time, and fix that problem. So then the whole year round would be fixed.
Oh yes, somewhere, when I was thinking about winter, because I believe there's a lot of snow, so I was thinking maybe winter is the worst time because of the cleaning issues, because of snow. So probably winter would have more issues related to any mass transit system. I mean, I was thinking that way. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah. They have a little bit of reliability problems, but they're pretty dialed in here of how to get around the snow. So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Anything else?
Yeah, Emily, I thought it was great how you were able to kind of just roll with the whole COVID-19 and find a way to do your public meetings, with those online surveys and the social media. Did you have a big collaboration with your Denver office about those, or were those things that you all were sort of responsible for coming up with on your own?
Yeah, we have, I have a public involvement sub-consultant working for me, and they're actually local. So we kind of brainstormed. It was really just me and them. But I also, there's this MetroQuest, which is a company that does transportation online survey. They're a software company. They develop these online surveys for transportation companies. They were kind of publishing like, how do we, switch gears? And I also reached out to a lot of my other sub-consultants. So I have a sub working on parking for me and a sub working on the pedestrian and bike. And everyone's going through the same thing. Everyone like had a public meeting scheduled and they're like, what do we do now? So we all like, instead of just being kind of narrow-minded and like, I'm not going to share my good ideas with you, like actually it was very collaborative, and we kind of all just like, hey, I just did this and I got all these responses from this survey, and maybe it was only a week, and that next time I think I want to make it longer. So that's kind of how we did it that time. I have a meeting next week where we're going to talk about our August outreach. So it'll be kind of, did that work? Do we like it? Should we do that again? Or do we have some other ideas?
Yeah, that sounds great with triple your respondents though. So,
Yeah.
good job on that. Yeah. And also it'll be interesting to see what your ridership is this summer, compared to other times. So
that's been a problem with not necessarily ridership, but our like just modeling, like going out and getting traffic counts right now, we can't get reliable traffic counts, right? So we've had to use the last time they took traffic counts was like 2013, and what's the growth factor? So that's been a little challenging and slowed us down a little bit. But yeah, it's a strange time trying to see what we need and if we can get it right now, and if not, what else we need to do. So
Right.
luckily our client's been obviously very understandable, and especially for that outreach, they're like, okay, take a few weeks and, you know, come up with some ideas and let us know. So we really guided that, but they gave us a few weeks to do it.
Right. That's great.
Oops. Tim, you want to ask something? Just one question. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so for the for these public meetings and all, you can do it directly, or you have to go through the local township or municipality, or you can just go ahead directly on your own.
So for what I did, like our public meeting was, the in-person one was going to be, we coordinated with the city, and we were going to do it at City Hall. So it's
Okay.
kind of coordinated with them.
Mhm. Okay.
And then for this one, we proposed to them, for the online one, we proposed and got their blessing basically
Their
to do it
approval, okay.
online. Yeah. But
Mhm.
they're the ones that put on their Facebook page was the advertisement.
Right.
The website, on their website
Right.
page, there's a link to our project. So they're the ones that posted the
Okay.
Facebook and the Twitter and all that stuff.
Mhm. Okay.
That's cool. I did have my question was, is this more like a project development process instead of compliance with NEPA? I mean, did it?
Yeah, so the great question. So right now there's no federal funding anticipated for building any of this stuff. So
Right.
it is project development, but I found that for these types of projects, we go through a lot of the same processes that we go through for NEPA. And because NEPA is just so well developed and established that, you know, all these, everything here, stakeholders making sure they're involved, purpose and need, all that stuff is right out of NEPA. And when I was working in Chicago, one of the reasons we did that, even if it wasn't going, even if we didn't get federal funds for, like I told you, there's planning, design, and construction,
Right.
even if we didn't have federal funds yet, if in the future we were going to get federal funds, we didn't want to have to go back and redo the whole process. So you still kind of go through the same process. So then if you, like for construction money, you don't have to go back and say, you know, start over again, but you can just say, oh, here's everything that's a requirement from NEPA. Let's, you know, go through the EA or whatever. So you kind of try to follow that process regardless for the projects I've worked on.
Cool. Thank you.
I also spent 4 years in Chicago, so like you know, I've been to Northwestern a couple of times. It's good to relate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny, when I moved out here, they said it's trafficy. I'm like, really? But I can see it. It's in the peak. There's a little gridlock, but nothing like Chicago.
Yeah, beautiful campus.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for having me, everyone. It was great to be here. Great to learn about this group. And if anyone has any questions later, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to share my experiences or anything like that too.
Thank you. Thanks for a wonderful presentation and sharing your journey so far. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.